Hi everyone, I'm Sloan from SloanBella.com and I'm back with another channeled celebrity video. This video is on somebody that I have no idea about other than I know the name and I know that he was murdered on March 9th, 1997. And I know that he was allegedly part of that huge hip hop gang, East Side, West Side, East Coast, West Coast. I'm thinking West Side Story, but I'm really taking it up a notch to the East Coast, West Coast gang rivalry that took Tupac out. And I'm talking about Biggie Smalls. I'm talking about Christopher Wallace, and I'm talking about Notorious B.I.G. So when he came through to me this morning, with all of the things that I've just said, there's like an idea or a feeling that you have around this person. It is always so shocking to me. Even I know I shouldn't assume anything, but it's so shocking to me when somebody comes through to me and they have an entirely different dialogue going on than what you would perceive them as from their public persona. And again, I wasn't a huge fan. I wasn't not a huge fan. On March 9th, 1997, when he was murdered in the Mid-Wilshire district by the Peterson Automotive Museum, I wasn't focused on that. I'm sure I heard it on the news, but at that particular point in my life, I had two small kids. I'd given birth to my youngest about a year and a bit before, and 6 months prior to his death, their older brother had passed away. So there was a lot of trauma that I was involved in, and I didn't really have time to sit and focus on the TV or really focus on anything. It was really all I could do to get out of bed in the morning and function. So I wasn't so familiar. I mean, I'm familiar now that that's the date and that's the time and everybody talks about it, but I can honestly say to my knowledge, I don't even think I've listened to any of his music. Don't hate me, haters. I will listen, I have not, that I'm aware of. But I wanted to tap into the energy, okay? So I wanted to try to do it without understanding a damn thing about him. However, you know me, I had to look up his astrology chart because when I saw his picture, I remember his picture, but when I saw his picture, he has this foreboding, almost like aggressive, like fuck you, I'll kill you if you look at me sideways kind of look to that face of his. That face that is almost like a mugshot, even though it was his PR shot. I was like, shit, who's he trying to scare here? And he looked very much like a Taurus to me. That is what he looked like. He looked like one big ass Taurus, all right? So I know he's not a Taurus. I know that he was born on May 21st, 1972, all right? So he would be probably, how I'm trying to add back from my age, he'd be in his mid-40s right now. And that's like really shocking because he died very young. I believe he was around the age of 24. So I had to look at his chart because I'm like, why is he staring at everybody like that? What is that about? Because I got the distinct impression when I started to feel his energy that he was extremely articulate, very educated, although not traditionally educated, but extremely smart, philosophical, and I couldn't figure out why he stared at the camera like that when they were taking his pictures. So I was looking to see what it is, and I found my answer. But first I'm going to start with, he was a Gemini sun, and he was in the first degrees of Gemini, so 00 something. We don't have his rising sign, so he could have been as far as up as about 3 degrees of Gemini, depending on when he was born during the day, okay? So from 0 to 3, I'm not really sure what it would be. Probably wouldn't have moved that much actually, but he was early first moments into Gemini in this life, whose ruling planet is Mercury. Geminis are great talkers and they can talk up everything, and they're really aware of the neighborhood, the surroundings in their local area. Now I went to his moon sign, and what I saw shocked the shit out of me because I know the way that he looked into the camera made me uncomfortable. But it wasn't the look of intensity and aggression. It was a look of a psychic dude, okay? He was psychic, intuitive, and the dead came to him. He was very well of that world. I don't know if anybody knows this to be true, but he had a Virgo moon. So the Virgo moon was at approximately 19 degrees. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I think it was about 19 degrees of Virgo. And it was conjunct Pluto within about 8 degrees. Okay, so it's a wider conjunction. A conjunction is two planets that are married and travel through the sky together. Even though the two planets have different jobs, they decided to marry each other and go in tandem around your chart. And it gives the influence of both together when they are working in a particular house. But we don't know what house they're in because we don't know his rising sign. Anyway, Pluto and the moon together give for one very psychic mom who you cannot pull the wool over their eyes, even if you thought you did. Okay, so there was that. And then with the moon being in Virgo, these are your people that are phenomenal psychics, whether they do it for a living or not. I'm sure a lot of his musical talent and creativity came from the fact that he was able to channel it through and just put pen to paper and make it work, or speak it and make it happen. And it would have an intensity to it with Pluto there, because remember, wherever Pluto is, it erupts, transforms, and changes everything about the energy of the sign. And in an emotional level, it would have been cutthroat. But here's the nice thing. It's with Virgo. So he would have verbally ripped you one. He would have used his intellect to rip you down and make you frightened so that he didn't have to take action. His stance was a way to keep you away. It's like spraying some awful perfume on you to keep people away from you so that they don't come close to you. That's what that look was, okay? Then I saw the Taurus, and I knew I saw the Taurus in him because he's doubly ruled by Mercury. The sun and the moon have the same ruling planet, okay? Although they are not square to each other by degree, but they have the same ruling planet. And that ruling planet was Mercury, which is in Taurus in his chart. So that is the ruler of his chart. And he looks like a Taurus to me. That face, that stance, that... I can't even look like he did. I think it's a brilliant look though, but he had like a character. He played a character there. Then I went to his Venus and Mars, and I understood things implicitly, what was going on with him. I wanted to know why he wanted to make himself so scary, why he wanted to be like that. Venus and Mars in Cancer conjunct within 1 degree, meaning not only are they conjunct, married, they are combust. They are within a degree, a 1 degree orb of each other, which means they're on top of each other. Venus is the planet of love and romance and kissy kissy face and chocolates and dinners and that first moments when you meet somebody and it's all like, ooh, I like this person, okay? And so his love affairs were very Cancerian, but it was conjunct Mars in Cancer. Mars is the planet of war on your Venus sign. What does that mean? It means war with lovers and war with those you love. Exactly. I actually was born with Venus and Mars conjunct in Cancer, conjunct Jupiter. So I completely understand that energy. Every time there's a love affair or a love person, there is this interaction that is warring like, but that is how they express love. So you have to understand these things in the astrology chart to know. The other thing with the Venus and Mars conjunct in Cancer, which would have really been applicable to him, is that at different points in his life, now he was so young, 24, but he did have kids already, like a couple of kids, I think. What would have been really, really interesting would be to see how he would have grown through life, because at first he would have been the paternal figure within his love relationship. So Cancer placed in Venus and Mars in a person's chart means that they are reenacting the parental experience in their love affairs. That does not mean in an illegal way, so get your mind out of that one. What it does mean is somebody within the love relationship plays the parental role and somebody plays the child role. So somebody is looked after and somebody does the looking after. And it switches back and forth in life. That also happens with an 8th house Saturn or a 5th house Saturn. You will be taken care of and then you will caretake someone else. So it goes back and forth like that. That's the interaction and energy of those two going together in the astrology chart. Add to it, where are they placed in which house? But we don't know because we don't know his birth time. I've said that. Okay, so I started to pick up on his energy and I was shocked. The first thing that came through, and I was struggling to get up a hill because I've been kind of lazy recently until the sun, you know, comes out fully and I'm able to run early in the morning. But anyway, I was kind of lazy, so I was huffing and puffing, and over here on my left side, immediately he shows me P. Diddy, and he shows the fangs of P. Diddy. That's what he wants me to see, is P. Diddy's fangs and the blood on the end of his fangs. It's exactly what he showed me, and he called him a devil dog. Don't know what that means, but that's what he said. Basically showed me P. Diddy, and then he kind of morphed P. Diddy into like a scary looking dog with fangs that hang down. It's probably like some kind of animal, but anyway, the blood on the tips of the fang and the eyes with the red in them, and he showed me that. Then he showed me somebody in his organization, Entourage, that came from higher up, and he used the word pyramid scheme, higher up in the pyramid scheme, and was morphing into one of them, but wasn't one of them. Okay, so there was a mole in the bunch, or a rat, or a narc, or just a plain asshole trying to get everybody killed in the group or entourage that he had. All right, so there was that. Then he showed me a third person. 3 people are responsible for his death. One of them is a woman. I do not know which woman this is. I don't know if it was the first baby mama, the second baby mama, which was a wife, or maybe the first one was a wife too, if it was a girlfriend, if it was another girlfriend. I tend to think there was a lot of women around him, and there would be, because he was a musician and he had money and he had power and he had prestige, so the women are going to come out and throw themselves at him. That's what happens. The poor men in our society. There's so many women thrown at them. Anyway, that's sarcasm in case you didn't know. But I don't know which one it is, but the woman that he shows me, okay, real cute face, serious look through the eyes, something about her forehead, and the hair is shorter. Usually the hair is shorter in real life than what she appears out in public. And he is saying that this was somebody that he loved very much. And he is saying that she turned on him with the devil dog over here. He's saying that, and he's saying that she has spent the time since he's died, since he's passed, spent the time trying to cover her tracks, cover her face, cover her energy, cover everything up about her. She's tried to cover it all up, okay? So she is trying to not be seen for who she is, but it's not going to happen. It will turn around and she will be seen for who she is. This is what he's saying. So there were 3 people involved in his murder. I'm calling it a murder. I almost said death, but it's a murder. He got shot like 3 or 4 times. And I am seeing on the day that he passed, okay, so as I said, he's in the mid-Wilshire district. For those of you that don't know Los Angeles, it's like Midtown. Wilshire, you're going between, I don't know, just people travel up and down there all the time. It's by the La Brea tar pits, the museum's right next door. So he would have been traveling somewhere around there. And he got shot, I believe, in the car. Now, what I found funny is he was always a passenger in the car. And I found this so funny because I'm like, oh, Virgo moon, conjunct Pluto, phobia about driving. Like, I was like, duh. Virgos have a thing with driving on the freeway, and they will drive 5,000 miles out of their way. Like, let's say they're in California and they got to go to Florida and they have to drive. They won't take a freeway. They'll take every side street known to mankind. They will go sideways. The Pluto's going to make it more of an extreme paranoia about it, but there was probably a phobia about driving for him at that time, you know, at that time. So it's interesting because he was a passenger that night and he got shot. But here's the thing. I feel that he knew about it 6 weeks before it happened. He probably got threatened all the time. I mean, hell, I get threatened, okay? So, and I'm not doing anything like they're doing. People get threatened all the time. If you cut someone off on the freeway in Los Angeles, you're going to be threatened with death, okay? If you gutter jump them coming home in the middle of traffic, somebody's going to try to kill you. And here's another real example in Los Angeles. If you cut in line at In-N-Out Burger and you don't go around the block to the 40 cars and get your ass to the back, somebody will get out of their car, because I've been in a car with somebody where they were cut off, get out of their car and threaten to kill your ass if you don't get to the back of the line. And they will be backed up by the other 40 cars. So it's not unusual to get a death threat around here. However, I feel that this is different. All joking aside, I feel that this is literally different. What he is showing me is he's showing me the beginning of his life. Like, here he is, he's, you know, the kid, he's Chris, he's Christopher, he's whatever his mom wants to call him. And suddenly he's like a teenager. And so there's somebody in his neighborhood who's like an older guy. He's probably like 11, 12, 13. So he's like a pre-teenager. or teenager, whatever, early teenager, and he wants to be all that, okay? So he wants to boss the house, but he's a man and they always want to do that when they're little. Little men like to do this. And there's nobody really putting him in his place at the time. His mother knows everything that's going on with him, but acts like she doesn't, just so she can keep the communication open, because it's weird. The mom and him, both of them didn't really talk, but they talked a lot. But they didn't really talk about what was going on, but she knew what was going on, meaning she had an idea of what her son was doing. So he's saying he could never pull the wool over her eyes, even if he thought he was doing so when he was alive. So he's in his neighborhood, and there's a kid who's about 23 to 25 looking, skinny kid, good looking kid, young man, comes up to him and says, hey, you want to run some drugs. Okay. And I don't think it's anything heavy. I think it's like weed or a little bit of whatever, but it's not that bad. And the kid's like a cool dude around town, drives a nice car, not too flashy, good, skinny, good looking kid. In and out of town, got a couple of girls with him. So this kid, Biggie, he's like, yeah, I'll do it. And then he's going to be a man. He's going to make his own money. He's going to move. He's going to do all the things that we all want to do when we're little, when we want to get out of our parents' house or get away from a situation. He's thinking just like that. This kid that he doesn't know, that he does know now, was connected to a politician in town. So this kid was working for a politician. He's trying to show me the hierarchy of what's going on, from little kid drug dealing all the way up to hip hop music, gangster rap, whatever it is. Now, here's where it gets really interesting for me, because immediately, and the whole way we're talking, and by that I mean I'm running and I'm just getting impressions as I'm running, I'm able to be really free when I run. So that is how I like to get my information. That is what I like to do. So I have to remember it by the time I get back to the car and write it down, or I forget it. But I am very free and I'm running, and suddenly he's taking my mind to Shakespeare and Othello, and he's quoting it and he's reciting it. And I'm like, wait a second, am I in like a 10th grade English class here? Or why am I talking Shakespeare with you? He is hell-bent on letting you know that this was a big, dramatic, Shakespearean theatrical debut to see if they could put into action a plan. He is telling me this is Shakespearean theater for the masses in a rebellious, anti-society way. That is what he's showing me. And he says, if you think it isn't, think again. Shakespeare for the higher ups, at the turn of the century or whenever he was around, and the people in England. I think it's more of a British thing, right? So these huge dramatic plays. And if I remember correctly, Othello, and don't quote me on this because I really don't remember, Othello, I believe there was like conversations in the head, like going crazy, either from a ghost or mental illness and obsession. He's talking about these things, and he's talking about it in Shakespearean terms. So I'm being led down the Shakespearean theater path, and I'm listening to him, and he's very well versed at the English language, and he's very well versed and conversant and philosophical about what's going on, and very freaking direct and articulate with this is an entire theatrical show designed for the people that are not falling in line. They have to have something to align themselves with, a hook. So you've got your 9-to-5ers going to work. You've got your moms paying their bills for their kids. You've got your husbands doing I need to buy a house, buy a boat, golf on the weekends, whatever. You've got all of these things, but you have a modicum of society that doesn't fall into any of that and can see through it, because they can see through it. So how do you get them into servitude to follow the man without letting them know they're doing that? You set up a West Side Story, but it's not. It's Shakespeare is what he's telling me. He's taking it up a notch. And actually, West Side Story was probably a form of theatrical interplay from Shakespeare anyway. But he's showing me Shakespearean level, like he's taking a grand bow. They're taking grand bows. And he's saying, I was betrayed by this because I didn't know that this was what was going on. But it's very clear to him, and he keeps referencing it as a pyramid scam. This is a pyramid scam. I wonder if he means like selling, vitamins or something, but he's talking about it. So he's talking about the young kid. So he's talking about the young kid growing up who was like 23, 25. And he's talking about that kid hawking drugs for a politician, a political figure, not a huge person, a political figure. Then he's showing the political figure going to the police force. This is what he's showing me in the pyramid. So we've got the one scale here. You've got your tough kids that want to grow up fast and all they care about is earning their own money. They're basically compliant as long as you throw them a little bit extra money so they can take a girl to the movie, buy a car, buy some clothes, and they continue to do their job. So these are this is where he started off. This is where this is. Then you go into the political part where you have a younger man who has aspirations and wants to get to know the business world and maybe open up a business, a chain of businesses. So he aligns himself with a politician, or rather the politician in the pyramid scam aligns himself with him. This is what he's showing me. And so that guy is the one that works with this lower level pyramid and then talks to the higher level pyramid. Then you're going up within the police force. So he's showing me this, and he's showing me the higher ups within the government of checks and balances. This is what he calls it, the government of checks and balances. So I'm like, what is that? And he's like, the ones that decide who live and die, the ones who decide where we go. And he's saying the dumb ones live, the smart ones die. So I'm kind of thinking he's referencing himself and Tupac and anybody else that's been like shot down or murdered just off the, cuff, just right off the bat. He's showing me this. Then as I'm going up, I'm going to somebody who I want to say is like a general. I don't know what else to say. So I'm seeing the lapel of a jacket, and this looks like a government person to me. This government person, when I zoom in on the lapel, how he's showing me is he's like zooming my mind in on the lapel. The lapel has a Masonic symbol on it. So he's basically telling me that this general, I want to use the word general, I could conceivably see this person as like the head of something bordering on like the FBI looking type person, telling me that they are a Freemason. So what he's showing me is it's coming from, and this is weird to hear, but it's coming from Freemason at the top of the pyramid scheme, working its way down to the controllers, down to the middlemen, down to the bottom. You're basically the way Biggie started in life, okay? So like, street hustle kind of thing. And there's a whole play, and it is Shakespearean. It is dramatic. It is intense. He's showing me this. He's gesturing in grand gesture. It is intense, and it is meant to bring that kind of emotion to the people, because if they don't bring that kind of emotion, then nothing is going to happen on their end because we are not listening to them. So each of us has the theater that we watch in life, is what he's saying. And for the kind of music that he was doing at the time and who he was dealing with, this was Shakespearean for his people, for his fans, for his base. This is what he's saying, and I can't stop saying it, so I'm going to say it. I was shocked when I heard that. No one has ever come through and said it. So he is quite well versed in English literature, history, and all of those things, but especially in the pyramid scheme that he's talking about. Now, at the time of his death, he was romancing several women. He needed to do that. That was something he liked to do. I don't blame him. That Mercury in Taurus is going to do what it likes to do. I always say, what if you have Taurus in your chart? You better be damn sure that you know your person, because if they like chocolate, they're going to eat chocolate all day. If they like sex, they're going to do sex all day. And of course, he was a young man. Okay, so who at 24 really is staying faithful? Probably people should not be, because they're not going to be. But anyway, he loved women and he loved being around them. But here's the thing. Here's where the Othello reference comes in. He would become obsessed with consuming a woman around him until he was no longer obsessed. And sometimes he didn't pay attention to the energy of the woman and why he was so drawn to her, so drawn. So that Moon-Pluto conjunction was so intense with the sexual heat that he just went straight over there. And once he was locked in energetically, there was no getting unlocked energetically. There was so much of that with him. One of these women betrayed him, the one with the shorter hair, and the one that keeps trying to change the way that she is seen. So I don't know if he means she reinvents herself, she's nice, she's not nice, she changes her appearance all the time. I have no idea, but this is what he's saying. And I'm not even going to try to guess. I do not recognize the person. Now, here's where he took my mind and an ultra mind fuck while I'm talking this way. Okay, so we've got New York, we've got LA, and he died in LA, in Los Angeles, California, West Coast. We've got East Coast, and he's a member of both coasts. Okay, so he's doing what he's doing. At the time of his death and 6 weeks prior, he's showing me a meeting with a man in a suit. Not a government man, but a man in a suit. I take this to be a man that, like, is a businessman, has money, and wants to do something. This man, who I feel like I know, not a nice looking face and kind of a prick. Anyway, this man says to Biggie, I need you to do this, this, and this to keep the theater moving. The show must go on. This is what he's saying to me. Biggie is not opposed to doing things if he actually himself feels like he wants to do them. But this fucker is asking him to do something that is disloyal to him as a person. And he's not going to do it. So he declines. And he is making his move. I'm talking about probably a month or two before he died. He's making his move to become an independent person. He was way ahead of his time in as far as where he could see his money going and the strand of money. And he was going to ditch everybody around him that was tied to him and had him shackled. He lifts his hands, shows me the shackles, and he was letting go of them because it was him that was creating what he was doing. And he had this whole idea, like he was kind of a visionary, because he's showing me ahead like 10, 15 years and where he wanted to take his music and what he wanted to do and how he wanted to play his role and move his character. And he didn't want any of this anymore because it was boring him. He was actually bored with it. He kind of was weirdly a little bit of a homebody. He loved his people, but he also was a little bit of a homebody. He would have had more kids. He would have been on the move. Probably, I'm surprised, like actually, I'm not surprised because there was a woman involved, but jokingly, later on in life, somebody could have shot him who was, you know, a wife of his or the girlfriend or mistress, whatever. Now, here's where it really got like a mind fuck for me. So I know it's East Coast, West Coast. He brings Chicago into the mix. The woman is connected to somebody in Chicago at the time of the hit on him. So there's conversations going between businessman A over here, and he was back and forth between New York. So I actually feel like the businessman was in New York. Businessman in New York asking him to do something that he doesn't want to do because it's not who he is and he's not going to do it. So he's like a big fuck you to it, right? He wouldn't back down either, and he declined. So he was going to take his music elsewhere, do his stuff elsewhere. He had enough cash to live on. He was quite secure in what he was doing. What he wasn't doing, and this is what he says, is he wasn't listening to his gut. He was not listening to his gut instinct because he knew they were going to kill him, and he knew there was a rat in his midst who was an undercover cop. This he knows. Okay, so keep this clear. The gangs that you're talking about in Los Angeles, at least from what I can figure, the gangs that you're talking about and the police that are trying to stop them, in the higher levels, they're all one and the same. They all go together. Okay, so this is just, I don't know, distraction, nonsense, theater, you know, bad school plays, errant children, whatever. Everybody is like in a cluster of the same energy, but he goes outside and he goes to the Midwest and he connects up with somebody in Chicago, which is really interesting because at that moment I flash back into a past life with him. 1927, 1928, middle of the Depression, or the Depression coming up. I think the stock market fell in 29. So thereabouts, he was born somewhere between 27 and 29. And he started off in his most recent past life working for Bugsy Siegel. That's a weird thing to say. That's what I'm going to say. But I feel like his life ended short. Same way, well, different way. He wasn't a musician, but he came back in and did it again. So a lot of the people that you're watching in his immediate circle that we see came from that lifetime, came back and came into this level of theater, came from that theater and came into this level of theater, high stakes theater. It was high stakes back then, but it's high stakes now. So he's showing me this and he can't believe that he got killed. He's just like, when he got shot, and he did get shot, I do feel what killed him actually hit him straight in the gut, and that was lover's revenge. Okay, so this is what I'm hearing. The female orchestrated this, but there's a connection to Chicago with her. I don't know which one of his women had a father that was highly connected in Chicago, or she herself was highly connected in Chicago, but the connection is in Chicago. The woman the cop, the rat, the undercover cop, the hidden cop, the mole, sounds like Russian now, but anyway, the mole, and then the devil dog over here, otherwise known as P. Diddy, all three of them are involved in this. All three of them, this is like a unit over here. The woman aligned herself over here. It was all about aligning yourself. Now, what I feel about that, what he makes me feel about that, is within the context of this period scheme, when you are afraid and you are afraid for yourself, you're going to align yourself. And that's what he's saying happened. He did not turn his back on people, and that is why he's dead. Now, when he got shot, one of them bullets, I mean, there were three or four, whichever, the one that hit something in his stomach caused the problem. So I'm assuming it's some kind of a vein or artery in the stomach. That's the one I'm feeling caused the problem. And I'm feeling like it was a direct hit. And I feel like he was dead before he got to the hospital because I'm seeing frothing at the mouth. So for some reason, the oxygen is stopped. I do see a hand over his face. That's a weird thing to say. I do see a hand over his face. He's not really acting as though that's what killed him. I think he was going to pass anyway. And if he didn't pass on that night, he would have passed within 3 years. So he would have been extremely young, and it would have been with 3 years because the karma was coming down on him. So if they didn't get him this time, and they tried before, they were going to get him again. The reason that they stopped him this time is because he was going to pull out the one who I want to say was a cop in the midst, a thorn in the foot. He was going to call this person out and step away with all his money, all his success, all his power, and go over here and really jam it and make something of himself, like really, really elevate the energy, and they weren't going to have control over it. So they took him out so he couldn't do it. And the energy just wiped it clean. Woman in Chicago though. Okay. So that's what I get. And this huge, he keeps referencing Othello, and I'm trying to remember, I will have to look this up. Somebody can look this up for me. Whatever. I'm seeing like the voices are talking to him. So he's ignoring his instinct. I'm seeing that as he's passing away, these things are playing out in his head. And when he steps out of his body, he's like, fuck. And he's pissed off. Okay. Pissed off. And suddenly, this is what he's showing me, because he's saying that people wanted to know how long he lay in pain, and it really wasn't long at all. He literally left his body before the pain registered. So I don't think when they got him to the hospital that he was necessarily alive. I think that he was already out of the body to the side of the body. Not that you can't be resuscitated, but somebody covered the mouth. So now that's interesting. The mouth was covered so the soul couldn't go back in and speak. That's what I hear. Okay, so that's why the mouth was covered. Soul couldn't get back in. I don't know why that is. I don't know what happened to the crown chakra up here or any other chakra, but I'm getting that he was trying to get back in through here, and this was covered up. So he was silenced, and he was silenced on purpose. But here's the interesting thing, because with all this chaos going on, and it is chaos, all right? It is this big, dramatic, the audience is on the edge of their seat. He's showing me this, like he's almost mocking it, like this is a fucking school play, but at the Shakespearean level. Suddenly he turns, and there is a sweet 3-year-old child standing to his right side who extends her hand, and he goes with her. This is a family member of his. I don't know who passed away. It's either 3 years before, or she was 3 years old when she passed, or she may have been a child that was terminated and would be 3 at the time that he passed had she lived. Whatever it is, this child that I take to be a family member basically crossed him over and changed his energy, healed him on the other side. He didn't come back immediately. He stayed in between. Okay, so he went over there and then he came back. It's almost like dimensionally walking. What he's showing me, and this is funny, he's showing me this, and I've never thought of it this way before. I know that you can travel through dimensions, and I know that you can pull your energy like a time traveler, and I know that it's not like in a spaceship, okay? Like you just like Star Trek more so. But what he's showing me is he's showing me a conveyor belt that goes between dimensions. He was able to come into this one, and he was able to see, and he was able to go back. And it's when he could handle it that he did this. And by the way, he says the people who killed him will come to have to deal with that. It's going to come out within the next 4 years. He's talking about the war that's being fought right now, and I don't think he means gang war. I actually think he means spiritual war, and he's shaking his head yes with that. Nodding his head yes, not shaking, nodding. He's nodding his head yes with this. I actually feel it's a spiritual war, and I feel like he's observant of it on the other side, and I feel like everybody over there that was tricked is waiting for this to happen now. So it is revealing itself, and the devil dog will get caught, is what he says. That devil dog and his girlfriend, that's how he's wording it, and the rat. So I'm getting this whole scenario of things that are going on here. There is an element of being tricked out of one's life, and that's what he feels happened to him. So this is me and Shakespeare and Biggie Smalls signing off for now. And once again, my name is Sloan from SloanBella.com.